This is not financial advice. I'm recording my thoughts about Alphabet or Google stock. The stock is currently trading at about $109 with a market cap of about $1.4 trillion. Folks are thinking that ChatGPT will be a threat to the Google search business. So I'm going to consider that as well in today's evaluation. I'm going to show two cases. One case with search business growth as 0% for the next 5 years. In other words, the search business growth has stalled. And second case, I'm going to show 5% growth rate for the next 5 years, which I think is conservative. I'm going to evaluate Google as three different businesses. The first one is the search business. In 2022, they made about $162 billion of revenue. And as you can see, I estimated 0% growth for the next 5 years. Search business itself is growing in about 10% plus rate, but I'm assuming that ChatGPT will disrupt Google search significantly, and that's going to stall the growth for Google search for the next 5 years. So in this case, the 2027 revenue will be exactly same as 2022, $162 billion. And we do know that net profit margin is about 25%. So I assigned a multiple of 17.5 on their $40 billion of net income. And with that, the search business would be worth $709 billion. And with respect to number of outstanding shares, as I said before, they have 12.94 billion outstanding shares in 2022. And Google is going to generate a lot of cash flow in the next 5 years. And they cannot just go out and buy any business because the antitrust laws do not allow for that, because Google is too big. The only thing that they can do is to buy back shares, which they will do in my opinion. So I'm assuming 4% buyback each year, which would get their number of outstanding shares to about 10.553 billion in 2027. So that's going to contribute $67 stock price in 2027 just for the search business. So now let's move on to the three entities: Google Network, YouTube, and Google Other. These three are about 30% of Google's revenue. So I added these three together. They're together making about $100 billion of revenue in 2022. All of them are growing at a varied pace. When I take an average, they're coming down to about 15% to 20%. So with 10% revenue growth rate in the next 5 years, which I think is conservative, they'll make about $161 billion of revenue. With 25% net profit margin, they'll make $40 billion of net income. And I assigned a multiple of 20 because they're growing faster. That's going to result in an equivalent of $76 just for these three business segments: Google Network, YouTube, and Google Other. Now let's move on to the cloud. Cloud, as we know, is growing at a very rapid pace. As I said before, in the past 3 years, they tripled their revenue from 8 billion to 26 billion. And I'm assuming a growth rate of 15%, which is extremely conservative in my opinion. With that, they can make about $52 billion of revenue in 2027 for the cloud business. And I'm only assuming a net profit margin of 20% because Google has to compete with AWS and Microsoft Azure, which are far ahead of Google. So therefore, they have to compromise on their margins. And that's what I'm assuming at least. So with that, they'll make about $10 billion of profit in 2027. So I'm assuming Google Cloud would be profitable in 2027. With that, the stock price for the cloud business would be about $17, just $17 for the cloud business. So we have valued search business at $67, network, YouTube, and Google Other as $76, and cloud business is only worth $17. And now I have another piece, which is the cash. They have $113 billion of cash left, right? And as Google stockholders, we all own that cash. So that $113 billion, when I divide with the 10.553 billion outstanding shares, I will get $11. So add all these together. I'm going to show one screenshot now. And on the top, I'm showing the addition of all these four numbers: $67 for search, $76 for network, YouTube, other. Google Cloud is $17, and the cash is equal to $11. In 2027, the price would be about $172. Currently it's at $109, right? So that's almost 60% gain in 5 years when we assume that the Google search business is going to stall. And that's not bad. That's going to beat the index for sure. Now let me show the great execution case. And I don't want to waste your time by discussing all these numbers. I'm going to put this screenshot. And the only thing I want to point out that I assumed 5% growth rate for the search business. Remember, in the previous year, they grew at double digit, and the search business itself is growing in double digits, but I still assumed 5% growth rate for the search business. And I modified the growth rates for the rest of the businesses as well, which reflect great execution. When I add these numbers, it comes down to $250. Currently it's at $109, right? So that's almost 2.3, 2.4x, which is an excellent gain for 5 years out. In the past 1.5 years, I've been saying Google is a buy at $100 or below, and I'm going to stick to that claim. I'm going to continue buying Google stock as long as it stays below $100.